All right, let's jump right in. If you're building a SaaS company, you probably think of API security as, a technical chore. It's something for the engineers to handle. But what if I told you it's actually one of your most critical business functions? Today, we're going to talk about how tiny mistakes in API authentication can quietly, and I mean quietly, kill your biggest enterprise deals. And see, here's the thing. We're not talking about some super dramatic movie-style hack. The real danger, and this quote just nails it, comes from these ordinary little gaps that get repeated over and over at scale. It's all that stuff you tell your team, we'll clean it up next sprint, that eventually hardens into a massive deal-killing risk. And this really gets to the heart of it. On one side, you've got a tech bug. It feels internal, right? It's just tech debt you can manage later. But a flaw in your API authentication, that's a whole different beast. That's a revenue bug. It's external, it's customer-facing, and you better believe it shows up on security questionnaires and kills deals dead in their tracks. So you have to ask yourself this question, and be honest. Are your security gaps silently turning into revenue gaps? Because enterprise buyers, they don't just care about your slick features. They care about blast radius, they care about audit trails, they care about trust. Okay, so let's get into the specifics. We're going to walk through the most common traps that founders and, those fast-moving teams fall into. These are the small, seemingly harmless shortcuts that create massive enterprise-grade breach paths. So the first trap, and honestly, it's a big one. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of what authentication is even for. It's treating authentication as just a login event. Look, a strong password at the front door is great, but it's completely pointless if the proof of who you are gets weaker and weaker with every single API call downstream. Auth isn't a single moment in time. It's a continuous chain of trust that has to hold up across your entire system. Next up, trap number 2. This one is born from convenience, but wow, does it create a huge liability down the road. Yup, using long-lived tokens without a clear rotation strategy. Think of it as convenience debt. If a token that lives for weeks or even days gets leaked into some logs or a screenshot, you've just handed an attacker a golden ticket to your system for a very, very long time. It's such a simple thing with massive consequences. The third trap is a little more subtle. It's all about how you classify the who or the what that's acting in your system. It's mixing human and machine identities in the same policy model. A person and a service have totally different behavior patterns, right? Lumping them together just creates confusion. And worse, it can create these hidden back alley paths for privilege escalation that nobody sees until it's way too late. And that brings us to trap number 4, which is, without a doubt, one of the most common and costly mistakes a team can make. It's about confusing a UI check with an API check. Let me be super clear here. Hiding a button for a non-admin user is a user experience choice. It is not a security boundary. An attacker doesn't care about your pretty interface. They are going to call that API endpoint directly. If the check isn't on the server, you have no real security, period. And the authorization traps just keep piling up from there. You see things like admin roles that can just hop between customer tenants, which is a huge no-no, or trusting a tenant ID that's sent from the client's browser without verifying it on the server. Every single one of these is a quiet little catastrophe just waiting for its moment. And a final critical trap. This is more of a mindset issue. It's the belief that internal APIs don't need the same level of security. They absolutely do. Modern breaches almost always pivot laterally inside your network. Assuming your internal traffic is trusted is just assuming safety where you really need proof. Overprivileged service accounts are like leaving skeleton keys all over your data center. So that was a lot of problems. Kind of depressing, right? So how do we actually fix this? The goal here is to build what we call durable trust. It's about turning that fragile, risky liability into a strategic advantage that actually helps you close those big enterprise deals. This maturity map is a fantastic way to visualize the journey. You might start at step 1 with just basic authentication, but you mature, right? You add checks at each endpoint, then you build consistent resource ownership checks, and you eventually move to a central policy engine with continuous testing. The key is to know where you are on this map right now and what your very next step needs to be. A really powerful pattern to help you climb that map is this idea of policy as code. Instead of scattering your authorization rules all over your code base where they get out of sync and contradict each other, you centralize them. You treat them like code. This makes your security posture consistent, auditable, and way, way faster to review.
So building that durable trust really comes down to these three pillars. First, solid identity proof. That means strong authentication and making sure your tokens are solid. Second, an authorization core with server-side policies and super strict tenant binding. And third, continuous assurance through automated tests and alerts. You get these three right, and you're building a system that enterprise customers will actually trust.
Now, theory is great, but let's make this real. Let's make it practical. Here's a 30-day action plan, a real hardening sprint that you and your team can literally start this week. And here's how it breaks down. It's designed to be manageable. Week 1, you just take inventory of your identities and boundaries. Week 2, you start enforcing server-side auth on your highest risk routes. Week 3, you implement the principle of least privilege and shorten those token lifetimes. And then in week 4, you ship the tests and alerts to make it all stick. It's all about focus and clear ownership.
And to make the risk really hit home, just look at this simple calculation. Your total risk window isn't just the token's lifetime. No. It's the lifetime plus how long it takes you to detect a breach, plus how long it takes you to actually revoke the token. In this example, a 24-hour token actually creates a 73-hour risk window. If you can shorten any one of those variables, you materially reduce your risk.
So what's your very next step? What can you do right after watching this? Here's the suggestion. Schedule a single 90-minute auth reality audit with your team. Do it this week. Don't push it off to the next sprint. Get it on the calendar. And to make that meeting actually productive, here's your agenda. Don't try to solve everything at once. Just pull your 10 highest risk endpoints. For each one, document one plausible way it could be exploited. And this is the most important part. Assign one owner and one deadline to each finding. Clarity beats committees every single time. Which leaves us with one final thought. The biggest breaches, they almost always come from the quietest mistakes. The ones that everyone assumes are somebody else's problem. So, what will your auth reality audit uncover this week?